Hi everyone, so today I want to go ahead and share with you kind of where I left off yesterday. Yesterday I did the bubble sort, so today I'll be walking through the selection sort. And you might notice that the background is a little bit different because instead of writing on paper, we're using a whiteboard, so I can just basically erase things a little bit easier now. So to explain how selection sort, let's just get a random array of numbers. So let's say 7, 4, 5, 3, and let's just say 2. Okay. So the way that selection sort works is we're going to have 2 pointers. So let me just get rid of this. So we're going to have 2 pointers, and let me kind of drag this to the middle. So the first pointer is the index. And the second pointer is going to be the minimum value, right? So min, which stands for minimum. So we're going to start off by pointing at this first item that the index is pointing to, right? We're at index 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So the way that this works is we're going to iterate through all the other numbers. If a number that we come across is less than the value of the minimum, that the value that minimum is currently pointing to, we're going to update minimum to point to that new number. When we get to the end of the array, if minimum and index are pointing to the same item, that means the item is in the correct spot that it needs to be in the array. However, if they're pointing to 2 different items, then we are going to perform a swap. And it's probably easier if I kind of just show you. So I'll stop explaining. So what we're going to do is we're going to compare 7 to the current minimum value, which is 2. Is 7 less than 2? It is not. Next we move to the 4. Is 4 less than our current minimum, which is 2? Is 4 less than 2? It's not. Is 5 less than our current minimum? 2? No, it's not. Is 3 less than 2? It's not. So now we've hit the end of the array. And now we have to check, is the minimum and the index, are they pointing to the same item? They are, which means that the 2 is in its correct spot. And then we move the index up by 1. So then index is now here, and minimum gets re-initialized to whatever the index is pointing to. Okay, and then we do the exact same thing. Sorry, this should say minimum. Let me raise it up a little bit. There you go. Okay, so then we have to basically just do the exact same thing. Is 4 less than our current minimum? It is. So what happens is that our minimum is going to be updated to the 4. So let me just get rid of this. And the minimum now points at 4. And then we continue on. Is 5 less than 4? It is not, right? Because 4 is our current minimum. Is 3 less than the current minimum? 4. Yes, 3 is less than 4. So our minimum gets updated. And now we've hit the end of the array. And again, we ask, are minimum and index pointing to the same items in the array? No, index is pointing to the 7, or the first, the one array location, the one index, and the minimum is pointing to the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4th index, right? Or as you can see, minimum is pointing to 3, index is pointing to 7. So what that tells us is that we need to perform a swap. So we're going to swap 3 with 7. And now the 3 is in its correct place in the array. And then we're going to go ahead and do it again. We're going to update our index. And then our minimum is now going to point here. So now is 5 less than the current minimum? It is not. Is 7 less than the current minimum? It is not. So index and min are now pointing to the exact same item, which means that the 4 is in its correct location. and then we update the index. And of course, min gets reinitialized. And then again, is 7 less than our current minimum, which is 5? It's not. And we've hit the end of the array. So then we check, is min and index pointing to the same item? It is, which means 5 is in the correct spot. And then we update index. And then min gets updated one more time. And of course, we've hit the array. So is minimum and index pointing to the exact same item in the array? It is. And so we've hit the end of the array. So now we can just look at this and see that it's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7. And that is in the correct order. And that is pretty much how selection sort works.